Hello, I'm Dr. Claudia Vandiver from the Maywood Watchdog. Thank you guys for tuning in. So, for today's presentation or video, we're going to go ahead and get into the understanding of the basics of what cancer is and how it really works. Via the Health and Wellness Corner of the Maywood Watchdog, my goal moving forward is to help educate our community members, specifically about cancer and other medical conditions that afflict our community. The objective of doing so is to help give you the tools that are needed to be able to take more control and better control of your health care and of your own well being. True cancer awareness starts with small steps like learning the signs and understanding the risks and supporting one another in the prevention and treatment. So, for this month, starting in October, I'm going to start the process of educating people in the community about both prostate cancer and breast cancer. And with the months to come, additional forms of cancer such as colon cancer and skin cancer and so on and so forth will be addressed on this platform, in addition to teaching you guys about different medical conditions such as high blood pressure and diabetes and a lot of other things that affects our community specifically at a higher rate. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this presentation about what truly is cancer. So, just like I tell my patients, in order for you to understand what abnormal is, you have to know what normal is. So, when you look at colon cancer, understanding that before cancer develops, you can potentially have abnormal growth that's called polyps. And if those polyps are caught in time, that can potentially help avoid it progressing to cancer. Just like skin cancer, changes in how your skin looks can be an indication that something is not working well or something is going wrong. So, being able to understand and identify that and to know what to do next is what we're really going to get into in this presentation. So, in this presentation, we're going to take a look at some important questions like what is cancer? How does cancer work? And why are routine screenings so important, especially when we talk about early prevention? So, when you look at new cancer cases, when you look at the United States, it's already to the point, and this most study was most likely done a few months ago, that over 2 million people have new cases of cancer. And then when you look at Illinois, we're looking at almost 80,000. So that kind of puts it in perspective. And then that doesn't even take into account people who already were diagnosed with cancer. So cancer is very prevalent in our society. The most common form of cancer amongst women at above 30% would be breast cancer, and then lung cancer would be the second most common. But when you look at men, of course, the most prevalent type of cancer is prostate cancer, with once again lung cancer coming in as the second most prevalent type of cancer found between both of the sexes. So, what is cancer? Cancer is defined as a disease characterized by uncontrolled growth and spread of cancer cells. Now, from a layman's perspective, or someone possibly without a medical background, I'm going to simplify it. So, if you look at this particular slide, you'll see there's a normal cell and a cancerous cell. Just like when I used to teach college students who hadn't had biology since high school, I kind of tell them that the center of the cell is called the nucleus, but it's pretty much the brain of the cell. So if you look at abnormal or cancer cells, there's been some type of damage to the brain that causes the cells to act in an abnormal way. And in the case of cancer cells, it causes those cells to pretty much just only multiply and increase in size. So in the slides to follow, I'll show you exactly how that can become a very bad thing. So, the first problem with abnormal or cancer cells is that they don't respect boundaries. So, for example, on the next slide, you can see that there's an elevator and there's something called elevator etiquette, meaning when you get on the elevator and there's other people on it, we understand that you get on the elevator and you give everybody their space. It's called spatial awareness. Well, abnormal cancer cells do not know what that is. So let's say in the same example with these four people on the elevator, let's say if 20 people started pushing their way onto the elevator, eventually those four people would be pushed to the back up against the wall. And if people continue to pile into the elevator over time, those people, or in the case of cancer, those normal cells are going to become compromised or damaged in the process. So, once again, cancer cells don't respect boundaries. Another problem with cancer cells is that because all they do is multiply and grow, they require a lot of resources and energy. So, what they end up doing is monopolizing resources and energy. So, when someone has cancer and as the cancer begins to spread, you'll notice over time, despite them continuing to eat, they'll continue to lose weight. And the reason why is because the cancer cells are requiring your body's energy more and more over time. So there's a scan that in the medical profession is called a PET scan. And what the PET scan does is by introducing a radioactive compound, cancer cells or cells that are multiplying at a high intensity or rate tend to light up. So that's a tool that we use to be able to find cancers that may not show up on imaging studies. But once again, it is that increased need for resources that causes cancer cells to begin to truly affect an individual's ability to function on a day to day basis. And finally, the last major problem is that abnormal cells quit their job, meaning that instead of doing what they're normally supposed to do, they divert all of their time and resources to, like I mentioned before, multiplying and growing in size. So, for example, if someone has liver cancer, like in this particular animation or drawing, you can see that about a third or more of the liver is cancerous. So the liver is the organ in your body that basically detoxifies the toxins you take in. So if you drink alcohol or if there's other medications or things that you take in, your liver is important in that function. In addition to that, the liver also creates and produces enzymes that help you to break down food and help you to basically take in those nutrients. So when over a third to two-thirds of your liver is cancerous, that means that a large portion of your liver is no longer doing its job. And then that's when you'll have a patient in that particular situation who can't really digest food. They have problems where they become jaundiced or, all of the toxins start building up in their system. So that's ultimately in a lot of these circumstances, what leads to a steady decline in the patients because their body in that area, those cells, the normal ones, can no longer make up for the abnormal cells that are currently doing things to further damage the overall functioning of the body. So, lastly, I want to cover staging of cancer. I know we've all heard of someone having stage four cancer versus stage two cancer, but I think it's important for you to understand what that means, especially when we talk about outcomes or prognosis. So, in this instance, I wanted to use an example or Apple as a prime example. So, all of us have had a time where we purchased something, a produce, a vegetable, a fruit, and it starts to go bad over time. Now, let's say in the case of this apple, we still wanted to use it. If you have an apple that is rotten or even a cancer that's very superficial, meaning just basically on the top layer, like you see in the diagram to the left, then potentially you could remove just that top layer and a little bit beyond it and potentially be good when we're talking about the apple. Well, that's the same way that we kind of approach cancer. When you go to remove a cancer, you want to remove the cancerous cells themselves and then an area that's beyond that, just to make sure you get as much of the cancer as possible. Now, in the second clip, you'll see that the cancer or the rotten portion of the apple has extended into pretty much like the meat or the middle of the apple, and the same principle basically applies. You know that in that instance, you still could remove the rotten section and still be left with some of the apple that's fairly in good condition. So that equates to stage 2 and stage 3. The difference between that and stage 4, as you can see, is that the cancer has pretty much gone through all of the different layers of the organ or the skin, and is now, based on the drawing, you can see, has gained access to a blood vessel. And when cancer cells are able to get into the blood system, it's like a free for all. It's like they're on a highway that can take them anywhere in the body. And then in that instance, I like to kind of equate it to the springtime with weeds. We've all seen the situation where you'll have a lawn where there really aren't any weeds, and then you have a neighbor who allows the weeds to go crazy. And then next thing you know, weeds or dandelions are everywhere. We call that kind of seeding. So once those cancer cells are able to get into the blood system, they're able to go to different sites in the body and basically seed those areas, and in that instance, that's when you'll notice that people will start to develop cancerous tumors in other parts of their body, because those abnormal cells from the initial tumor broke off, went to the other areas, and basically grew a whole new colony or a whole new batch of cancer cells. So when that actually occurs, now in stage 4, it's defined or said that the person has metastatic cancer, meaning that the cancer has broken off, gone to other areas, and it has spread. And the significance of this is that once cancer is metastatic and not localized anymore, then when you talk about treatments, just like in the apple, if it's localized, you can go in and take out the mass and try and just get rid of those cancer cells there. But just like in this example of the pictures from left to right, the more tumors there are, the more difficult it is to get an upper hand on actually getting the cancer under control. So that particular, or that in essence, is why early detection is so imperative, to be able to give patients the best chance at having a positive and a good prognosis. So I hope this gives you a better understanding about how cancer works and the importance of early detection so that you can get earlier intervention. In the course of the next few months, I'm going to be releasing additional content that's specifically focused around prostate cancer and breast cancer, bringing awareness to it, and once again, giving you further understanding about those two particular conditions. And in the course of the year, as I decide to venture into teaching you guys about other conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, I'm still going to be adamant about educating the community about other forms of cancer, such as colon cancer and skin cancer. So, with that being said, I hope that this was a good experience for you and that you learned a lot. And then, once again, please feel free to share this information, because as a community, we need to know how to take better care of our health. And I really love it when my patients are educated and informed, because as a physician, it helps me to better be able to help them. So with that being said, I'm Dr. Claudia Vandiver from the Maywood Watchdog. You guys have a blessed day.